everyone. So today we are going to start with next chapter of standard 10 science, that is our environment. As we all know students that no one can live alone in this world. So different type of plants, animals and microorganisms live together in a community that is termed as a biological community. And the success of this biological community actually depends on the interdependence of all the organisms that live together in a community. So from here, we define environment, that is all the things around us is known as environment. हमारे आसपास जितनी भी चीजें हैं, be it plants, animals, microbes, soil, air, water, जो कि सब चीजें आपस में interact करके हमें help करती हैं life को succeed करने में, these all things are termed as environment. Now, talking about the components of environment. Our environment basically consists of two components. One is the living component that is formed by these plants, animals and microbes. These living components are also termed as biotic components. On the other hand, there are other components also like soil, air and water that also plays an important role in maintaining the stability of this environment, and these non-living components are termed as abiotic components. Further, let us study about ecosystem. How we define ecosystem? An ecosystem is self-supporting unit of living organisms, that is plants, animals and decomposers, and their non-living environment, that is soil, air and water. The term ecosystem was given in 1935 by A.G. Tansley. He described ecosystem as a unit in which the living organisms, that means the biotic components and the abiotic components, that is the non-living components, for example soil, air and water, actually interact with each other and they together act as a supporting unit for each other. So he described ecosystem as a self-supporting unit. Further, let us study the different types of ecosystems. Talking about the different types of ecosystems, there are two types of ecosystem. First is the natural ecosystem and second is the artificial ecosystem. If we talk about natural ecosystem, that is they operate in nature by themselves. उसमें human interference नहीं होता है, हमारा कोई भी role नहीं होता है. For example, desert, grass, land, pond. अगर हम pond की बात करें तो pond में aquatic plants भी होते हैं, aquatic animals भी होते हैं. उसमें हमारा कोई भी role नहीं होता है, ठीक है? तो दैट इज टर्म्ड एज अ नेचुरल इकोसिस्टम. और अगर हम आर्टिफिशियल इकोसिस्टम की बात करें तो दीज आर मैन मेड इकोसिस्टम्स एंड ऑल्सो मेंटेन्ड बाय देम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक्वेरियम. व्हेन यू सेट एन एक्वेरियम एट योर होम, तो यू पुट वाटर इनटू दैट, वाटर नॉन लिविंग component. Then you introduce certain water plants into them. You introduce living plants, that is the living component. You also introduce some stones into your aquarium to enhance its beauty. These stones form the non-living component. Then you put in the fishes or other aquatic organisms that can be put into the aquarium. So in this way you are actually maintaining an ecosystem, and this ecosystem which is maintained by human beings, that is termed as an artificial ecosystem. The aquatic ecosystem is of different types. First is fresh water and next is marine. In fresh water we count river and streams, ponds and lakes, and wetlands such as marshes, swamps and bogs. Talking about the marine ecosystem, the coastal areas are counted among the marine ecosystem and the oceans. On the other side, the terrestrial ecosystems. The terrestrial ecosystems are grassland, desert and forest. Further, let us study a little more about the ecosystem, the components of ecosystem. I have already told you that there are two major components of ecosystem. One is the abiotic component and second are the biotic components. The abiotic components, as I told you, are the non-living components and the biotic components are the living components. Both these components play an important role. Without any of one of the component, the ecosystem cannot maintain its stability. Talking about the abiotic components, for example, climatic factors such as rain and temperature, Defic factors, that is soil, pH of the soil, minerals and topography. You all know that every organism can survive in a particular type of climate. He can survive normally in a particular temperature. If the climatic conditions are very harsh, then it creates a problem for the survival of living organisms. So in this way, climatic factor, that is a non-living component, is directly affecting the survival of living component, that is human beings, plants and animals and other microbes. So you have seen that how abiotic and biotic components are interlinked with each other. The one is affecting the survival of other. Talking about biotic factors, those are the living components. They are classified as producers, consumers and decomposers. Let us first talk about producers. Producers are also termed as autotrophs and these include green plants. They are termed as autotrophs because they make their food by their own. Green plants have chlorophyll in them. This chlorophyll in the presence of sunlight helps the plants to prepare their food and thus they are termed as autotrophs. Now, all other organisms, be it animals or some other lower animals, all other animals are directly or indirectly dependent on the plants for their food. And that's why these organisms are termed as consumers because they are dependent on the plants for their food. If we talk about human beings, we human beings are also dependent on plants. We are getting our food from plant sources. So that's why we will be termed as consumers. And similarly, if we talk about animals, there are animals who are directly dependent on plants. Those we term as herbivores. For example, cow. These animals eat plant leaves or parts of plants to fulfill their food requirement and thus they are directly dependent on plants. So they are consuming the plants or plant products. That's why they are termed as consumers. These consumers are known as primary consumers. Those are termed as herbivores. Talking about the secondary consumers. Secondary consumers are those consumers which are indirectly dependent on the plants. And the next are the tertiary or the quaternary consumers. The tertiary or the quaternary consumers are the carnivores. They are basically the large carnivores that eat small carnivores. These small carnivores are actually eating other organisms. So these large carnivores are termed as tertiary or quaternary consumers. The term given to consumers is heterotrophs because they are not preparing their food on their own and they are depending on plant or other animals for their food. The next category of biotic factors is formed by decomposers. Decomposers are the microorganisms that help to degrade the dead plants and animals. When they degrade the dead plants and the animals, this degraded matter is again mixed into the soil, which helps to renew the nutrients in the soil. These decomposers are bacteria, fungi, and saprotrophs.